Hey guys, do you want to know a little something about slasher movies?
Yes.
Yeah. We are a slasher podcast.
This is true. All right, so as I said in the Malignant episode, slasher genre came about in the 70s, right? It was a successor to the giallo genre. So obviously that was when our classics came about. You know, that's Halloween, Friday the 13th, all that stuff. One of the big names in the golden age of slasher movies was John Carpenter, who directed Halloween and wrote it along with Deborah Hill. But there's another big name in the slasher movie space, and he came about around the same time. That was Wes Craven. So in 1972, he released The Last House on the Left, which was his directorial debut. It was produced by Sean S. Cunningham, who went on to co-create and direct the original Friday the 13th. But Last House on the Left was an exploitation film. It was about two parents who avenged the SA of their daughter and her death. Well, that movie was almost damaging to his career. He didn't make another movie until 1977, and actually several of the actors involved were later regretful of having been involved in the movie. It was very graphic. It was very, very extreme. But in 1977, he came out with The Hills Have Eyes, which he wrote, directed, and edited himself. And that was based on the legend of Shawnee Bean. And that was about cannibals in the Nevada desert. I mean, we've all at least seen or heard of it, right?
I mean,
it's a classic.
Remade. I mean, the remake came out. So.
Exactly. So that's two cult classics in one decade from the same director. But he wasn't done. In the 80s, he did 1982's Swamp Thing, which is also a cult classic. But in 1984, he made what is considered one of the greatest horror movies of all time. Definitely one of the greatest slashers of all time, and that's A Nightmare on Elm Street. It was so big that it created a mini major out of New Line Cinema, which was mostly a distributor at the time. They actually still have the nickname The House That Freddy Built. So when you think or watch the Lord of the Rings movies, you can thank Freddy for that one. Well, that was around the time that the slasher genre was kind of going down. That marked the beginning of the Silver Age, which was mostly sequels, cash grabs. You know, we got a couple of classics. We got Candyman, Child's Play, Maniac Cop. But it wasn't really a good time for the slashers. It was basically dying.
Yeah, and it was actually so much so. Sorry, Frank, don't mean to interrupt.
It's okay.
Or go in. That's actually why Wes Craven then left Nightmare on Elm Street, because he didn't want it to become a franchise. He was done with it, so he was like, you know what, I'm done. So I believe in the end of the 80s or the 90s, he started another film, which probably no one in here has ever heard of because it flopped miserably, was this film called Shocker. Has anyone seen that?
You say that with a question like you don't even remember the movie.
No, because it was actually filmed, a majority of it was filmed at Balboa Park. It was about this.
That is shocking.
Yeah, it was about this guy, and it was a murder on death row, and he was getting the electric chair. But right when he was getting shocked, his conscience left him and went to a prison guard. So it's a movie where his consciousness is constantly shifting through people. Was not a very good movie. I like bad movies,
sound
so
like
I
it
liked
was
it.
I was going to say, that was such a great picture.
Yeah.
That just sounds like such a great idea.
And that's the thing, is it didn't do well at all. It actually tanked really bad. And it was supposed to be Wes Craven, oh, I'm going to start this new franchise now. Only never had a sequel ever.
Back to you, Frank.
Yeah, back to you.
But you know what did get a sequel? A Nightmare on Elm Street from Wes Craven. In 1994, Craven came out with A New Nightmare, which wasn't very successful critically. It actually is the lowest grossing Nightmare on Elm Street film, but it was critically well received. It was kind of meta, or at the time you would say self-referential. It was about the cast and crew of the original Nightmare on Elm Street film getting haunted by Freddy Krueger, who turned out to be a real demon that was haunting everyone, including a fictional Wes Craven in the movie. It was really fun for its time. We'll probably do an episode on it later.
We have to.
It wasn't really until 1996, right when the slasher genre was pretty much dead, that a little film came out called Scream, directed by Wes Craven, written by Kevin Williamson, and it is officially the start of the modern slasher era. And that is the movie we will be covering today.
Welcome to a special episode of Strangers in the Alps, a slasher podcast. I'm Sam.
I'm Frank.
He's Travis.
And he's Dan.
Yay.
We got a bit.
They got a bit. It's so adorable.
No!
For all of
Well,
you,
we stole the bit from you guys.
For all of you listeners that have been listening every week, thank you. Dan and I have been trying to have a bit now for a couple weeks to add some context if you are a new listener.
Well, we lifted that bit from Sam and Frank. Let's be honest.
They have their own bits, and we just stole
Like
it.
a true Hollywood person. You
Well,
just
you know,
steal
you
from
do.
us.
I just
Steal and make it better.
I just repeat everything everyone says. I just say it louder.
That's true. He does.
God.
I saw that text earlier. All right.
We are excited to be back to talk about Scream.
Scram.
Can I just
Creme.
before we start this,
5 cream.
today I have a story related. Today when I was leaving work, I had to make sure I was like, okay, let me leave on time because I gotta, we gotta record this. And one of my coworkers was like, oh, you gotta go. I was like, yeah, I gotta go. And then my coworkers were like, yeah, your friends are waiting for you in the cabin. And it took me a second. I was like,
What cabin?
oh, yeah, no, that's good. Thank you.
Wait a minute. Is that where you go when you leave the cabin?
Yeah,
You're earning an income?
wait, you get paid?
Why are we eating this crap ramen then every night?
Well, that's what you're eating. In the year of our Lord, 1996, a year after the murder of her mother, a teenage girl is terrorized by a new killer who targets the girl and her friends by using horror films as part of a deadly game.
It's scary.
A Scream.
It's Scream.
Scram.
Creme.
I
That
thought
needs to
that
be
covered
said.
it really well.
Yeah, I did
honestly.
too.
Okay, we can just
I
do
think
that.
if we just keep in mind as we talk about the movie and our favorite parts, just keep it,
Add some
give it
context.
context.
give it context as much as you can, because I think that log line pretty much covers it. I would love to go through our pre-thoughts, but I'm happy to start since I just saw the movie for the first time.
Dan doesn't watch horror movies.
And I started, you know what, I want to say something. I started reflecting on that earlier before we did this. This movie came out in 1996. In 1996, I had 2 kids, 6-year-old and a 4-year-old. So pretty much all the movies I saw were either Disney movies or movies that wanted to be Disney movies. There was no streaming back then. Movies didn't play in the theater and then 2 weeks later be streaming on Amazon or Netflix so you could conveniently watch them. I watched movies with my wife when we would watch, VHS. We did not watch movies like this. A, she would not watch a movie like this. And B, I have no interest in gory slasher movies. That was just not my thing. So I missed all of these movies. So my pre-thought of this movie 27 years after it was released was, okay, I think it's going to be gory. I'm hoping it'll be fun and scary. It's a classic. I know that. It spawned several sequels that all were very successful. I know that. So I was very excited actually to see the movie after all these years and just kind of get into, okay, what's this all about? But honestly, I didn't know anything about the plot or anything. I just never bothered studying or reading anything about it. So that's my pre-thoughts. It's going to be interesting, your pre-thoughts, since you probably saw the movie so long ago. I don't know how you could possibly remember
Dan
your
was busy
pre-thought.
watching Mrs. Doubtfire.
I don't like Mrs. Doubtfire. I did see it, but I did not like it that much, and we can talk about that another time.
We're covering it for sure.
I'll go after you because
That restaurant scene was pretty scary.
I'll go after you because it's kind of the same vein. Because it came out when, again, much like Chainsaw, when I was still afraid of everything. So when this came out, again, terrified, don't want anything to do with it, don't care about it. So I didn't know it was a comedy and horror, and I didn't know at the time that two and two can go, or two can go. I didn't know at the time that two and two can go in hand, or hand in hand. So I was a little scared of it. And unfortunately, I watched Scary Movie first before I watched Scream.
I saw Scary Movie too.
Yes.
That is something I did see.
Original title of Scream was Scary Movie.
I know, I saw that. That's yeah.
Yeah, so safe to say that kind of ruined it for me a little bit. So when I watched Scream for the first time, like, oh, that's why Scary Movie was referencing it. That was my pre-thought.
Yeah, I'm on a similar boat. Like I mentioned before, I wasn't into horror movies when I was a kid. I had a traumatic experience, so I stayed away as far as I could from them. I do remember being babysat once, and our babysitter rented Scream, the VHS, and I saw it thinking, oh, this looks interesting. And as soon as I asked, hey, can I see that? She told me, that's a scary movie. It's not for you. And it sucks anyway, so you don't want to watch it. I was like, oh, okay. So I kind of stayed away. My first Scream was actually Scream 3 for some reason.
You went backwards.
Yeah. So there's references to stuff in the later movies that I didn't understand at the time. But I did get those Scary Movie references because I did see that first. So like you, I was like, oh, that's what that was referencing. And even now, like watching it, watching all the movies, I can't help but kind of think of Scary Movie at the same time.
Same.
But it doesn't diminish the movie itself. It's just like, a little,
it's fun.
Aside, yeah.
All right, let's keep it down to under 20 minutes, Travis.
20 seconds.
So Frank, interesting that your first one was Scrithrium. I'm gonna keep doing this throughout all the
Can
films.
you just explain the joke so our listeners understand what you're doing?
If you've seen the poster for Scream 3, instead of the E, it's a 3. So it spells Scrithrium.
Oh, like Mithrigan.
Like Mithrigan. Also, as I call Scream 5, there's 5 Cream. Scream 6 is Screevy. Scream 4 is Scriforum. But before I get into that and keep that on going for weeks, so if you've ever had a conversation with me...
He did it. He did the line.
Apparently I say that a lot. That if you've ever had a conversation with me.
He said it in three episodes.
Literally.
We're having one with you right now, which I've also repeated.
I've been watching horror movies my entire life. It's just...
How old were you when you first saw a horror movie?
I think I saw this one when it came out.
That would have made you 5 years old.
I was about I was under 10. I was maybe 7. Like, I didn't see it in theaters, but I remember always having the VHS tape when I was a kid. I turned out fine.
That's
up for debate.
Debatable.
That's funny. That's
for sure.
Funny.
So, kind of like you, it was always like Scream was always kind of like the companion piece with Scary Movie. I would always see them together. I don't really have any pre-thoughts because, like I said, for me, I don't know a time before I had
when you were
seen
without
this.
Scream.
Yeah, was without
cream.
Scream.
Without crab.
Ew.
S. La Creme.
But I have an interesting story. I actually
We'll be the judge
I
of that.
actually got in trouble in church one time.
You brought Scream with you to church?
I did not. So I remember, like I said, I was maybe like 8 years old, maybe 9. I was under 10, and I was in like Sunday school. And we were there, and I didn't go maybe every week, I don't know, but I just remember being there, and the big scene where he's like describing the rules in the horror movies. It was just something like all the kids did. We were like, oh, this is cool, like in school in the playground. So I remember I was sitting in the front row at church, and for whatever reason, like this kid was like really mad because I was sitting in the front row and he didn't get to sit in the front row. So I think as like they were giving the lesson or something was going on,
it would be called the sermon. Go ahead.
No, it wasn't a sermon because we were kids.
Then you weren't in church. You were in Sunday school.
That's what I said, Sunday school.
Oh, I should listen when he's
Yeah.
talking, shouldn't I?
So they were like going on. I don't know what they were doing. I don't know if they were doing the like offering, but they were doing something. And then the person behind me, the person next to me, had also seen Scream or something. We just started talking about. I was like, oh yeah, there's the part with the rules, and we started going over the rules. Then right when like the Sunday school teacher came back up, the Sunday school teacher, the kid raised his hand. The kid that was, I guess, mad at me that
Yeah.
I got to sit in
Jealous,
the front.
uh-huh.
Yeah, and they were like, "Oh, what's up?" They were like, "Just to let you know, he was talking the whole time while." So I don't think he should sit in the front anymore.
Oh my God.
And then like the Sunday school teacher kind of looked. It was like, "Yeah, switch seats with him," and he gave me a look like, "Yeah, I did it. I get to sit in front, and you don't."
So did you plot his murder at the anniversary of that event? Is that what
Because
happened?
that would bring this to some logical conclusion.
No, I just always thought it was. I just never told the story in my life, and I was like, here's a good, here's a
Should've
good little,
kept it that
here's
way.
a good little anecdote to start
And
off my
now
Scream
thousands of people know this story.
about when I got in trouble in church for what about Scream.
All 30 people.
Okay, so
First scrum.
we've given our pre-thoughts
And then some.
and then some.
I have
yes.
an anecdote
And some
because I don't
extra,
have
extra,
I don't have
thoughts.
pre-thoughts, so I have an
Neither
anecdote.
did I. And then I just stopped talking.
So Sam, what was it like when you first watched this movie?
So let's start off with Dan, because I think that's the most interesting thing about rewatching a lot of these movies
that
is getting
is
a new.
interesting.
Yeah, I like getting new perspectives on movies.
Fresh.
So I mean,
Fresh.
Dan doesn't watch horror movies. If you didn't know that,
what? I didn't know that, even though we've repeated
what?
it every
I
episode.
don't.
we have.
But what have
people-
I been doing the last 2 months?
This is. We might have new listeners. This might be someone's first episode.
Hey, listeners, go back and follow the early episodes because we've got a story going on. But Dan, now that you're dipping your toes into the horror pool, what? Well, let's start off with.
Are you okay?
Are you?
How are
yeah,
your
okay?
dreams? How are you sleeping?
Can you sleep?
And just like with the Last of Us discussion, this is also rooted in reality. This was based on the Gainesville Ripper. So lead with that, Dan.
Oh,
I
that,
did actually.
that triggered something.
That I did not
Yeah.
know.
A light bulb went off.
He just got his Metal Gear Solid. The ring.
I didn't know this was actually based on a real event.
Yes, sir.
Now, in the real event, was he running around wearing Ghostface?
No.
But it was based off phone calls.
Yes.
And Ghostface, here's something I didn't know, and then I'll get into my thoughts. I didn't realize that the Scream costume was actually already existed. So Ghostface had already been manufactured by a Halloween company. People were already wearing it for Halloween. Is that true? Am I correct in saying that? 'Cause
Yeah.
that's what I read.
Yeah, it was a costume, a Halloween costume before the movie started production.
Was it
Built
out? Was
for
it
the
out there?
movie? Was it for the movie, or
That's
was
what
it?
I'm questioning.
No, it was just a costume.
I actually didn't know that.
So it existed on Trick or Treat before the movie, or was it sort of in tandem and it all kind of came out at the same time?
If I'm remembering correctly, somebody that worked on the production or the manufacturers of the original costume kind of worked in tandem to make it, but it was already being planned. Like I think they saw a prototype. They were given a prototype, and from there it kind of like became what it is now.
Yeah.
Ghostface.
Gotcha.
If
and
it
that.
wasn't branded then, it sure was now, and that person started making a lot of money still in that generic costume.
I hope they did. I hope they had that.
We have it right here.
But we don't know that person made any money.
Let me take
They
a picture.
probably
Hold
That's
on.
an
didn't.
assumption that you can't always make.
Follow our social to see this
So,
photo.
so
Stop
my
shaking it.
so my 7-year-old son, when my son was
6.
7, I'm
Yeah,
so
at
sorry.
the
When
time.
my son was 7, so that would have been a year after this movie came out, he went trick-or-treating as Scream.
Ghostface.
And I remember thinking, wow, this is really creepy. And
No, I was gonna say I don't know why that was one of the I think most elementary school. That was one of the most popular elementary school costumes because
Yeah.
every year and
Yeah.
every class when they did like the parade to the Monster Mash, there was always at least one kid. I even did it one year. And do you remember even too when they had the heart and the mask would bleed?
yes,
Yeah.
we actually, my son did that as well. I still had that mask, and I put it in the window. I redid it so the lights turn red. And Halloween, I have it in the window. It's really cool and super creepy. All right, getting off subject. So my initial thoughts about the actual movie Scream, 1996, Courtney Cox, David Arquette, Neve
Campbell.
I will tell you this. I thought the first 10 minutes of the movie, the whole Drew Barrymore setup, I actually thought it was really freaky.
Did you fall for it?
It did. What do you mean, did I fall for
I mean,
it? What does that even
I'm
mean? Are
sorry.
you going to keep interrupting me?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, tell me. Fall for what?
I mean, not the fall for it. Like, did you? Well, no, that's a bad
Did you
example.
believe that Drew was going to be the lead?
Did you think she was going to die? Did you think she was going to be the lead? Which you've seen the cover of it, so probably
the setup.
not.
Did you fall for the setup?
Okay. No, I didn't even think about that.
Okay.
In my mind, when the movie opened, I didn't know what to expect. Then the phone call started coming. Of course, I jumped on that pretty quick. But no, I wasn't thinking about whether she was going to survive or not survive. I was very caught up in what was actually going on. I thought it was really, really well done. And I found it creepy. I found it scary. It made me very uncomfortable. And I thought it was executed really well. Like, I was like kind of freaked. And by the end, when she's hanging and all bloodied and battered and the parents, I was like, whoa.
On the phone, they can hear her dying.
It was just really whoa. And that carried for me into about the next 15 or so minutes. I wasn't looking at my watch, where, there were just jump moments that I was like, whoa. Like, I was so like, it's like, we talk about this in our own writing, Here and There with Roger Garland, a screenplay we are trying to get promoted. You show the audience something at the beginning, and you can't take it away. So as an audience member, you see all that, and it cannot be taken away. Like the opening of It, which may be a movie someday we'll talk about. These things happen, and you're super freaked out, or freaked out, or uncomfortable enough by it that you're worried that, oh my gosh, what can happen from here? Mm-hmm. But as the movie continues, it's becoming less that, and the campy, I don't want to say silly, but it becomes more like, and I'm going, okay, wait a minute, what am I watching here? I mean, remember, I did not know. I did not read about this. I did not know that this was supposed to be what I feel like it ended up being, which is weird because why did you do that opening the way you did that opening, where you really made it freaky and scary and then decided after that, I'm going to make it kind of not that anymore. It's going to almost get a little silly and a little campy. And by the end, which I'll get to later, I really want to talk about Act 3, but that's a separate comment. But those are my initial thoughts. So I'm very conflicted right now, although now I totally get it. I get it, but that's not how it was led in for me. That wasn't the experience I had watching the beginning of the movie. I had a very different feeling about what this movie was going to be.
So it kept you on edge. That's what you were talking about.
It was very edgy at the beginning and lost its edge the further it got into it, and became, to me, an entirely different kind of movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I think that's a good point of discussion to talk about Casey Becker's death, because it's honestly, it's the big linchpin of pretty much every movie. It all spawns from that one moment. And I think, like you're saying, it's such a tense, well-built, well-directed 10 minutes that I feel like that moment carries throughout pretty much everything that comes after. Because it's brutal, it's tragic, and it's honestly, it's just sad. It's not a total downer, but like, you think about it.
Absolutely.
And like even now, like, Casey Becker's death is one of those deaths that just stays with you. You just, like, when you think about it, you're like, damn, that happened, huh?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because the part that and I said it before, the part that always gets me is like the parents hearing her dying on the phone.
It's crazy. It's so well done. I mean, I don't want to totally put it on a Psycho Hitchcock level, but it was freaky. Mm-hmm. In that way that it's freaky and psycho. When, spoiler alert, when Janet Leigh gets hacked up in
the shower.
That's stuff you don't forget.
Yeah, it's an iconic horror moment.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then, I think it shifted gears.
Yeah.
Slowly, but it's slowly
I
shifting
think
gears.
Yeah.
too, it was even big. I mean, even for like Drew Barrymore to have her in the opening because she hadn't really done much in a while, so it kind of like rejuvenated, kind of revived her career as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's so good in it too.
Oh yeah.
Oh, she's great. All right.
Sam.
I don't know who's next, but those are my thoughts or initial thoughts.
I thought we did initial thoughts.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
We're
Those are
just
my
going into the
first-
discussion.
That's my
about-
first discussion. I want to save some of the later stuff.
I will say, for that cold opening, whatever it was, if I had watched it at that time in the 90s, I feel like I would connect with it more with the phone calls. But since I watched it way after, like in the 2000s, I don't pick up phone calls, so I can't
Yeah.
connect to the character in a way because I'm just like if I hear a phone, I just wait for it, and it's one of those things where like, oh, if it's a really important phone call, they'll leave a voicemail.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm just like I don't connect with it because I don't pick up my phone.
I don't think anyone does. Yeah, because me too. It's like I always have the like, if they're not gonna leave, if I don't know the number.
Yeah.
And then I even think too, Sam, I think at one point, like a few years ago, because I'm still probably one of the only people that call.
Yes.
I remember one time you answered, you're like, hello, you're like, you're the only person that actually calls
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
Everyone else sends me text messages.
But I only talk on the phone with you.
Yeah.
Weird.
That's funny. I do the same thing. I only talk to the phone to Travis.
Yeah, you
I'm
just
old
call.
school.
Yeah.
I like talking on the phone.
Well, then Ghostface would have definitely been a good person for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I hate talking on the phone, especially in public.
Especially with Travis.
Yeah, like call me in public. And today was an exception because I needed to talk to you guys about that stuff. But call me in public normally, and I'll be really quiet. I'll be like, okay, yeah, that's
Same,
yeah.
actually, yeah.
Yeah, I don't like it. So I mean, and we'll get into the whole texting versus calling later. Travis, Sam, you know what we're talking about.
I feel like if he was texting her, it would have not quite had as much
No,
edge to it.
No.
No, there's something so impersonal about
It's-
texting,
it's the
which
per-
is why I like it.
It's the perfect like 90s because even though they're setting up and she has the popcorn, she's putting on the movie. I don't know. It just felt so like of its time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like the 90s.
Yeah. Speaking of 90s, the title card.
Oh.
Oh, it's
That
the
font?
90th thing.
And then the zoom ins and
Yeah.
like
And
the
the
sound
screaming,
effect.
yeah. But you know what? I think it works still. It's just there's a lot of little bits here with the movie that really age it, but not in a bad way.
No.
I guess it
It's
works
a
more
time
like
capsule.
Yeah, it's
I
more like
agree.
framing than aging
Well,
like milk.
and-
Yeah, I enjoyed I enjoyed the time. I enjoyed the whole where the era that we were in. Even though when it was done, it was present time. It held up fine for.
And yeah, I think it works perfectly because even when you have like, we all know, and I think it might be why Dan didn't started to lose interest because it kind of almost becomes like it becomes a parody of horror films. But I like the way it's done because, like you said, it doesn't age itself with the tropes. Like every joke it's making, you can watch it now and still understand. It's
Yeah.
not like, some films where they target something so specific, like a commercial on TV, or like when you're watching Naked Gun a lot of times now, it's like, well, I don't really get that joke anymore because you weren't alive.
It's dated.
Or you don't know. It's
Yeah.
super dated. I feel like this film didn't date itself at all. And like everything that it is dated now works for the film. Like we said, the phone calls. Which wouldn't
But
really work now.
I don't
but-
want to go into a whole thing about the Abrams and all those movies, but they're very that humor, like Naked Gun or Airplane. That's very headline humor. It's very much about what's happening right now, so it doesn't have a shelf life like other movies might. I mean, I'm not trying to defend those. I'm just
No,
saying
no, no.
that's
Yeah.
a very different kind of. That's like Saturday Night Live humor. It's like very right now.
That's what I mean by, I guess the point I'm trying to make is like this style that we got. I had never seen it before, and like seeing it when I was a little kid, obviously, I didn't like understand that a lot of it was a parody.
And
like to me, the whole thing was scary.
Now, but the cool thing too is talking about timing is when I was watching this movie, I was thinking, wait a minute, how's this guy talking to her? He's got to have a landline. It didn't even occur to me that in '96 there were cell phones already. So that was a really cool thing that they did. They used the cell phone in a way in that period that had not been done. That had not. So that was
Yeah.
actually a very cool way to use what was considered modern, technology at the time.
Yeah.
Speaking of cool, I think also too, like what cell phones looked like back
The brick?
then.
You mean the
Also,
the
the brick,
Nokia?
the ones where they flip open, because it just the reveal of it was always so cool when they flip it. Because now it's like, oh yeah, iPhone. It's like that's not scary.
Yeah.
I don't know why. It's always like that phone that it's so big and it flips. It just kind of adds to the film.
It's iconic.
It's
nowadays.
iconic.
Right.
But going into that that moment after Casey's death, you get introduced to our final girl. Now,
Survival girl.
don't you fucking dare, Sam.
Survival girl.
I'm watching you.
Love that.
Hate it.
Sometimes I feel
But
like
an iconic scream queen by this point, Neve Campbell's Sidney Prescott, who's in a really unflattering nightgown. What is that
the
thing?
Exorcist nightgown.
Oh God.
Maybe that
which
could be
they
it.
make fun of in Scary
Yeah.
Movie.
But yeah. So first thoughts so far. The horror movies you've seen, the slashers we've covered so far. What are your thoughts on Sydney, the final girl of this movie?
Outside of Neve Campbell's acting, are you talking about?
Yeah,
The character.
Well,
The
just
character
yeah,
itself?
just the character itself.
That's a really great question. I thought she was really good. I don't know that. For me, I mean, she was good in that. I thought she filled her role well. I thought she fulfilled her purpose in the story. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And I think she's a good actress in that she handled it really well. But at the same time, I wasn't. I mean, that isn't what was carrying me through the movie.
Yeah,
I guess that wasn't. I mean, I wasn't rooting against her. I was certainly hoping she would survive this.
yeah, but
And assumed that she would. It felt very much like she was going to survive this.
yeah, like
and,
in
and
terms
be a part of that finale. Although we could talk about that too.
Oh
'cause
yeah,
that also
that's
is
gonna
another
be
thing.
that's gonna be a thing all
but,
its own.
But ask me. I mean, is that what you're asking, or
yeah,
do you
well,
want
I guess
a more
what I'm saying
specific
is like
idea?
in comparison to the other final girls we've covered so far, like where would you rank her?
Oh, I would rank her high.
Yeah.
I would say she fulfills that final girl. And where are we in '96 with that? Is it a very well-defined?
Yeah, by this
trope?
point we've gotten Laurie
Halloween,
Strode,
yeah.
we've gotten Nancy from Elm Street, we've gotten well, I mean, for Friday the 13th, like it's a crapshoot with those.
Yeah,
final
no,
girls.
we've had a lot. That
'Cause they
trope-
probably change every movie.
That trope has definitely been established by now. But I mean, even to go in, we'll talk about it later. Kind of how this movie affected all horror films that came out after, especially slashers.
Yeah, I'd be very interested in that. But yeah, I thought she did. I thought she fulfilled her role really, really well.
Yeah, I think this might have been the first movie where I saw a final girl who was pretty capable, because by this point, Laurie was in 2 movies, but she doesn't really. I mean, she's capable, but I mean, let's be honest. Those movies are very. They're not complex characterizations. They're simple final girls who are decently capable. They survive.
That just happened to be the final girl.
Yeah, this is the first time I think that we really see a proactive final girl who, takes charge of her own fate.
She's a complex character. Like, it's not like the other final girls you've mentioned before. It's straightforward.
Yeah,
But with this one, you don't know what happened to her mom. She has this like bad boyfriend. So it's more like you gotta keep watching to kind of figure her out.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, because I
The dad conveniently disappears at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
On his business trip,
because
which is. I only say that jokingly because when that happened, of course, she's going to be left alone all weekend. We had to have that happen.
red herring.
No, I agree. I agree with Sam though. There is complexities. There are layers to the character. There is an absolute journey. So I mean, regardless of, Neve was great, but yes, I mean, there's a very well woven journey in her character with this story. that has a very clean beginning, a very clean Act 2, and a very strong Act 3. So that part, unlike some other movies we've seen, is very well drawn.
Are you talking about Shopping Mall?
Well, that's what
The Shopping Mall has a final girl, but we had no idea who that was going to be until the final scene.
No mentioning previous episodes.
That's one we can mention anytime we want
but
to.
I guess I agree too, because I feel like with this film and Sydney's character, it's like, I mean, of course, with like Laurie Strode and some other characters, it's like the backstory that we get from Sydney actually does end up affecting the story. It matters. It's not just filler, because sometimes when you watch Friday the 13th or other movies, it's like everything they're saying, they're just padding runtime. It doesn't matter.
They're just trying to get to the next
They're
kill.
just trying to get to the next kill. It's just filler. That's all it is. I mean, no offense against Friday the 13th, but that's always kind of the crutch in them. It's just a lot of filler.
Yeah, I mean, some movies, I like all art. Some art is pretty, some art is just fast food. So
Right.
that is Friday the 13th, and that's why I was really excited for you to get started on these, because you had mentioned before that you were, like all these movies are pretty much the same. Like it's just very simple, and with Scream, especially with Scream 1, that's where you kind of start getting those complexities and character development and things that that actually matter. So I mean, I'm glad that you picked up on that. But how do you feel about the direction overall in this first half? Like, do you feel like Wes Craven's doing a good job so far?
When you say first half, you mean...
like that first half between. So after you get introduced to her, we move on. You get little hints at Sydney's past. Obviously, the school is reacting to Casey's death. Sydney's taking it kind of personally, but then there's this implication that something's happened a year ago. And then obviously, as you get into that second act, Sydney gets attacked by Ghostface and basically falls for every trope that she previously said she hated, like the girl running up the stairs when she should be going out the front door.
Absolutely.
So,
and I thought to myself, there she goes up those stairs.
And then that leads into the thing with Billy, the boyfriend, his cell phone falling out of his pocket, his cellular telephone,
his big Nokia.
Cellular telephone.
I thought that was a great moment, actually. When the cell phone, I thought that was a really great twist. I mean, there was I want to answer your question, but there was another aspect to the movie that I actually really did like, and that was the murder mystery aspect to it. It really played like a murder mystery, like who is actually doing this, which takes it to another level versus just a slasher kind of thing. I mean, that obviously the slasher is who's doing it, but we don't know who it is. So there's little hints, like there's the whole thing with Billy where he drops the phone. So now, I'm in my mind, I'm going, it can't be him. We're in the midway point of the movie. That would be a terrible reveal. But then he makes the phone call. So then you're immediately going, oh, okay, well, he's off the hook. So I really like, there's almost a very...
Pun intended.
Well, that'd be Texas Chainsaw, wouldn't it? But... No, now we're stopping. What do you mean? No, I need to know. What's the pun?
I was thinking off the hook because it's a phone.
Gotcha.
Oh, the landline. Oh, he's going real. He's going real 90s.
These don't have hook.
I'm in 1996.
So that was really cool. I feel like I've strayed away from your question,
It's
but
okay.
I did like that murder mystery layer to it. I thought that kept me involved, regardless of how and we'll talk more about this, or hopefully how the tone of the movie kind of evolved and changed. But that part I thought kept me very engaged. Because I do want to know who is this fucker that's doing this.
Yeah, and going
to quote Frank.
and to go with the murder mystery. I mean, something I always really liked in the film, especially as a kid, and I liked it now, was Randy's whole character, working at the video. Funny because when I was a kid and I saw Randy at the video store, I was like, "That's gonna be me when I'm in high school. I want to work at a video store."
Equivalent, you kind of did.
Cool.
You worked in a movie theater.
I worked at a movie theater. I was like, "I'm Randy." I always thought it'd be cool, but I always kind of.
The thing is, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
You totally look like one of those guys that worked at Odyssey.
Odyssey?
You're a total
Odyssey?
Odyssey.
For those who don't know,
Insulted.
Odyssey is a independent video store
On
in the
Sherman Way.
valley.
That place was fantastic.
I never went
He
there.
would rather. He would rather.
Odyssey was great.
Well,
they
because
went
Odyssey
way.
also-
Their catalog was way deeper than Blockbuster
Hold
or any
on,
of
no.
those
He
places.
would
Speaking of- they
rather
had
work.
some-
Can I talk? He would rather work at Cinephile on Santa Monica.
Oh, I still go
Next
there.
to Newark.
I have a membership.
I'm saying you would rather say that you work there rather than Blockbuster or Odyssey.
I remember when I was in high school, I got a job at Blockbuster, but then I couldn't work there because I was too young. They were like, "Oh yeah, you can start working here." They were like, "How old are you?" I was like, 16. They were like, "Oh, you got to be 18." They're like, "Just come back."
Because it's like the
really
rated
cool."
R.
Come
Yeah.
back in a couple
No,
of years.
that's what
We'll,
they
we'll
said.
be out of
Come back-
business.
Then they're like, "Come back in a couple of years." They're like, "It's really cool. You know, we just talk about movies. We play Rock Band in the back." Came back 2 years later and
Clerks.
they shut down.
it was a sport.
Blockbuster's down
It was a sports clip.
Yeah.
Okay, continue.
But no, I always like the rating like him kind of. He was almost like the detective kind
Yeah.
of almost leading the
Yeah.
story, because it's like we're in a horror movie and I have all these tropes, but go on, Dan.
No, I didn't want to get stray away from Frank asks a good question. I don't think it was answered.
So going up until that point, right after Sydney's first attack, even into the police station, so far, what are your thoughts on Wes Craven's direction?
I thought it was really good. Not to make a vanilla answer out of a very fine Sunday question. Sunday meaning
done
chocolate
a
sauce,
couple
nuts, and
movies.
whipped cream.
He's done a couple
Yeah,
movies.
if-
Just Wes Craven guy.
I feel like he knows what
He's
he's
done a
doing.
movie or two.
He knows how to say action. That guy knows how to cover. No, I thought it was good. I'm trying to remember anything particular about the sequence of shots, like even in the action sequences, that made me go, "Whoa, that guy really knows how to cover an action sequence." Having some other movies we've already seen, and where it's, I think, a little more, you're more aware of the way it's covered. I'm not sure with Wes Craven I was as aware of the shots as I was just aware of the storytelling itself. Where I don't feel like, and maybe we can discuss where I'm missing something. Which I don't think is a bad thing, but I think this is more of a compliment in that I think he covers them. The movie is shot and covered in a way that I was not that aware of the shots, except there was one sequence where Henry Winkler, which by the way, was he uncredited? Because at the final credits, I didn't see his
see it
name.
either. No, I didn't
think
see his
he-
I
name.
think this guy went cameo for us, but when right before he dies, and you see the reflection of Ghostface
In his eye?
in his
Yeah.
eye, I thought that was a really cool shot,
Yeah.
but it also kind of stood out in kind of a weird way, because that was like the only shot where at least that I remember, where I went, "Wow, Wes, that's like, you really took your time to set this shot up," and everything else is more like you're just covering it really well, where I'm not aware of the actual shots as I am aware of just the way that I'm very sucked into what's going on action-wise.
I'm gonna go in a little bit of spoilers, but I mean, if you like horror,
Man, if you're spoiling a
Yeah.
1996
That's what I'm saying. If you say you like horror movies and you haven't seen this one by now, I don't know what to tell you. But a shot that I actually really liked is set up is when towards the third act of the film, when they're having the house party and they have the TV set up and they're watching Halloween, and it's the shot that it cuts from the camera that they have set up, but then it also looks like the POV of the TV when they're watching Halloween. And I think it's good too, because I really like the shot, like I said, I'm getting into spoilers, where when they're watching it, and I think it's Halloween and one of the characters is dying, it's getting stuff. And if you look at Stu sitting there, he is totally enjoying the way the character's being killed.
You know what I love though? This is the third time I've seen it, and you start to catch on to these little
Yeah.
clues like that one. For me, it was when Billy was released from the police station, and then he bumped into Sydney at school, and she was still questioning him. And he said that, "Do you still think that I'm the one that called you?" Or he said, like, "I wasn't the one that called you." But I caught that he shifted his eyes over to Stu, who was in the previous scene. standing by the locker.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's
Yeah.
kind of like, for me, it was
Oh,
giving a
wow.
clue.
That's cool. Yeah, I
I
didn't-
wasn't the one that called you this
Because
time.
he did.
He did, yeah.
That's a good catch.
So
That's a good catch, but that's the third time you watched it.
Yeah. Took me 3
That
times.
was your script 3.
even
Yeah.
I agree. Even now, like I think now that we've spoiled who the killer is, even
One
though
of them.
everybody knows,
Yeah.
You should know by now.
Yeah.
even
Well, that's the thing, though. It was 2.
Yeah.
So even now, rewatching it this last time, I kind of picked up on another thing, and that's that they go out of their way to show you Stu picking up Tatum with one hand,
Yeah.
which kind of gives you, it kind of answers like, okay, how did they get Casey up on that tree? I mean, Stu's strong enough to pick up Tatum. He should be strong enough to pick up
And he's tall,
Casey.
too.
And he's tall. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like it's those little things that kind of like clue you in. There's other
Yeah.
stuff too.
Yeah.
So since we're talking about it, when Sydney's getting chased up the stairs by Ghostface, you can very, very faintly hear Stu saying "easy, easy,"
Oh, really?
just the way he says in another scene in the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and you can also hear Billy's grunts at the beginning when Casey punches him with the phone.
Yeah.
When he turns around and she's on the other side of the window and he tries
Yeah.
to grab her. So like there's a lot of little hints here and there that you can pick up on when you rewatch. It's all there.
Yeah.
It's all there, which is I think a testament to Wes Craven's direction. I mean, he's a master of horror. Of course,
Right.
it's going to be there, but
And it plays on Dan's, when he pointed out it's like a murder mystery. You watch it and you know who the killers are. So at this point, if you're rewatching it, you're rewatching to see where the clues are. Mm-hmm. And that's the fun of him wanting you to like come back and watch the film over and over again.
exactly.
Yeah, and speaking of direction too, what did everyone think of the casting of
It's
the
great
film?
all around.
Yeah,
I love Rose McGowan.
Yeah.
I think she's the perfect 90s, 2000s, I wouldn't say mean girl, but like it girl.
Yeah.
Because I love Jawbreaker.
Yeah, she's great in that.
So that was one of my favorite films. So seeing her in this one, I feel like it's a good connection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she picked out her own costume for this movie
Oh,
too,
it
which is
looked great.
I've brought it up. I think my favorite actor in the film too is Matthew Lillard. Mm-hmm. I think who played Stu. I think he did great. I think Jamie Kennedy. This is probably, I'm not a big fan. I know Dan, you love Son of the Mask, but I'm not a big fan of Jamie Kennedy's other work. I mean, when I was kind of younger, I thought Malibu's Most Wanted was kind of funny.
Oh gosh.
But no, I think Jamie Kennedy was kind of like born for this role.
Yeah.
I think.
He was born with a VHS in his hand.
But no, it's good. Dan, what did you think of the casting?
Well, I agree with everyone you mentioned. I can't avoid not talking about Courtney Cox and David Arquette,
Oh,
however.
yeah.
I mean,
Were they married at that
why
point?
Are we,
Not
oh,
yet, not yet.
But this is where they met.
That's where they met. Okay.
I mean,
As we chronicle,
cannot,
we will.
Yeah,
we will talk
cannot overlook Courtney Cox, and I will start with David Arquette. Yeah, I agree with all those. I thought that all the high school kids, all that casting was really, really well done. Not just in their acting, but just their look. The whole, it just was very well cast. So my hat off to the casting director because it was a very
Yeah.
well put together cast. But are we going to get away from Courtney Cox and David Arquette?
Speaking of.
I'll get back to it. Don't worry.
Frank, David. Speaking of overlooked and Courtney Cox and Center, we can overlook her bangs in Scream 3.
Yeah, we'll overlook that when we get to it.
Yeah, let's get to it
Go.
first.
You'll see when we watch it.
Can we talk about the score really quick? Because usually when I bring it up, it's because I truly enjoy it. But this one, I hated it.
What?
It was.
The Welcome to Woodsboro theme is amazing.
Yeah, Trouble in Woodsboro.
Trouble
and
in
Sydney's
Okay, hold on.
Lament?
Let me finish my
Okay.
thoughts.
Yeah.
It was just that even the most mundane scenes, like with Sydney walking around packing her bags to school, it had this really intense scoring, and it's like you don't need that.
It was overdone.
It was like, why?
You mean intense, like it was supposed to? I'm sorry.
Like
You
when
mean
she went camping.
intense,
Shut the
like I was.
fuck up.
You mean intense? Like you, it was supposed to make you uncomfortable and
No,
feel
it was
edgy,
just like,
or just
no.
it was
It
too much.
took her out.
it was over.
Well,
it was overused.
Was it supposed to do that though? Is my question.
It had nothing going on, and I think that's what they were trying to do, because in the few seconds later, it was the news of, I forgot what the news was on TV, but it was like something tragic. And I think it was when they brought up her
mother's death.
mom. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yes, that makes sense. But just her walking around, and then you have this like really, I don't know. I just didn't like it.
Well, yeah. Well, I have to disagree with you on there, just because I love the that track that Travis is talking about. Trouble in Woodsboro is iconic horror track, and Sydney's Lament, which comes after, it's that vocalization that kind of like, I guess, symbolizes, the tragic history of Sydney and her mom and all that. Those tracks kind of go from movie to movie and develop as her story develops. But I love the work of the composer Marco Beltrami. He's done some other stuff too. He's done my other favorite horror movie soundtrack, which is Resident Evil, which he did with Marilyn Manson. And they did some interesting stuff in that, where they used certain frequencies that are known to cause discomfort or, certain feelings in an audience. So I really appreciated that.
Yeah.
But I love that score. But I want to know what Dan thinks about Courtney Cox and David
Why are
Arquette
we
before.
back- Why are we back to them?
Can I say
Because
something really
he
quick
never got
about
to
the
finish.
Well, can I say something really quick about the music, and then we can get to
It better be real quick.
Dan's.
Go.
So no, but I agree. Trouble with Woodsboro, I really like. I think, and this has no credit to the composer, is I actually think my favorite track from the song. Not every time I hear the song, I associate it with this film. Is that like Red Right Hand? And the red right.
Oh, by Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds.
Yeah, when I think it's first played, when Dewey has like the ice cream cone.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't know why that song is just so iconic to this film for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have no history or background with David Arquette whatsoever. I'm trying to remember if I've ever seen him in anything else.
Eight-Legged Freaks.
Oh yeah, that's right. I liked Eight-Legged
That was a
Freaks.
fun one.
Wait, who did he play in it?
He was the lead.
husband or something?
No, he was the sheriff, like the main. I'm not sure if he was. It's been a while since I've
Was
seen
he
it.
the deputy?
Yeah, the deputy.
Okay.
A deputy again.
Yeah, I'd like to see that movie again. I liked it when I saw
It
it.
still holds up.
But I did like the choice of casting him. I liked the way that character was drawn. I think we discussed in other movies where sometimes the cops aren't very interesting. I thought he was an interesting cop, and I thought he fit well into the tone of the movie.
Yeah.
It didn't feel, for me anyway, it didn't feel outside of the film, of the movie itself. Courtney Cox is a different story for me, and I'm trying to maybe. I'm going to put this on me. I'm going to say this is my problem, not Courtney Cox's problem. I cannot tear myself away from her being Monica, and I don't think there's any way I will ever be able to see her as anything but Monica. So I found her performance. I'm
Underwhelming?
sure she's a very good actress, maybe. I found it very phony. I found that to be a very, I don't know. And I think part of it is because when you have an actor in your living room for whatever many seasons
Decades,
that was, and I watched Friends.
Same.
Okay?
Yeah.
So when you see them, and again, I didn't see these movies when they came out. And that was obviously, these came out while she was doing Friends. So maybe I would have had a different feeling about it. But 27 years later, and I'm still seeing reruns of Friends.
Yeah.
And seeing her, I just thought, I would have cast somebody else, honestly. I think that was a very poor choice in casting, and I know she's in every movie, which I'm really not looking forward to.
Do you maybe
I can't tear myself away from, I'm waiting for the laugh track. I'm waiting for the the Monica-isms are still there
You
in that
think
character.
it's Monica playing.
Right, you think it's Monica playing
Gail,
at this character.
Yeah.
So that's it. Sorry, Courtney, I know you're a lovely person.
I was gonna say, do you think? I think I've seen Scream. I mean, my sister and mom watched Friends a lot, so I watched a little bit of. But for me, it was I kind of saw them concurrently. But do you think maybe Gail Weathers' character in general? I mean, I guess she can kind of be I don't know if I'm overthinking your analyzation. Do you think maybe her character kind of being phony in general, in a sense, with other people, and
Yeah.
she's very self-centered, and she's kind of just using everyone just to like further her career and story? Do you think maybe that kind of clouded your judgment?
No,
at
I think
all?
if a different actress had played the part, I wouldn't have been hooked on the fact that that's Monica. I think that's all it is. I have no problem with the way the character was written.
yeah,
I have no problem with her being a self-centered, a career climbing, whatever I can get for the headline. That's not a problem, but I needed it to be a different actress.
Well, it's like if you had Pee Wee Herman in any other movie,
Right.
you're gonna see him as Pee Wee Herman.
Right. But anyway, that's it.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
all.
I mean,
it's not like it's bad writing. I
No.
don't think it was bad writing.
But I think that's going to be an interesting thing going forward, just to see how you react to her development, because I think I personally read some of that phoniness in there too, but because I'm not a fan of Friends, I think Friends ruins everything. I hate Friends with a passion.
Friends TV show or Friends life?
Both.
Gotcha.
But I
Another chapter in the Frank
you know what, at least
Frank story.
I don't know. I figure you're either like
Okay,
an
so
office.
he doesn't like Friends.
You're either an office
He doesn't
person
like
or a
holidays.
Friends person.
I'm
I
both
don't.
though.
Oh, you're both?
Yeah,
I was gonna say you're either like the office person or the friend. Well, you can be both.
Are you kidding?
I love The Office.
You can be. Well, I'm just saying, as in, like, I know some people will say, like, oh, they find like office people annoying.
They're like, oh, I love Office, but I hate Parks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or I'm just saying, like, you know, like you kind of have.
I'm
I'm
a
going
very,
way off.
very loyal friend and fan
Well,
of, excuse me, the sitcom. I
Mm-hmm.
love sitcoms. I grew up on sitcoms.
Yeah.
Look, I don't like bad sitcoms. I don't like average sitcoms. We're not going to get into my list of favorite sitcoms right now, but no, a great sitcom is great entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I really meant like you're one or the other. I think it was more like, and we're totally sidetracking, is that like, you know, the same way how some people are like, oh, I don't, you know, like, sometimes I find people that like watch The Office kind of annoying. It's the same with kind of the Friends. Like, it's like, oh, I don't like the fan base of
Yes.
either.
Yeah.
And we're gonna move on
Okay.
from that.
Well, that's
yeah.
interesting, Travis. But anyway,
I know.
Wow, thank you, Travis.
So
No.
so again, I'm excited to see how you react to Gale, and honestly, and the other characters going forward, if they survive, because as we will see,
Yeah. Even in
some people might, some people won't, but it's that thing that you were talking about earlier, where you want more complexity with these characters and you want development. So I think this is just a great series to see that, because I don't think any event goes undeveloped. It really shapes who the characters become.
Yeah.
So I'm just really interested to see how you react to that going forward. But you know, moving on from the second act, you know, as anybody who's seen the movie knows, once Sydney gets attacked, she gets attacked again, survives at school. We get that great line about, you know, your mom left town. She's not lying in a coffin somewhere, which I feel like will pop up in another movie, but we'll see. So we move on to that. And of course, as Randy will eventually mention, there's a third act bloodbath that's coming. And to start off that third act, we get a party at Stu's house.
Ooh.
The perfect setting.
Perfect setting.
It's such without having seen all those movies, it's such a classic. Well, first thing we got to do is get everybody we possibly can into one location
Of course.
so we can then have a
Kill
wild bloodbath in Act 3.
Of course.
And this movie lived up to all of its...
Oh, did it ever? So, you know, going back to what you said about the first, that first 10 minutes starting off so tense, and then the movie kind of, you know, becoming something else. I really feel like the third act kind of brings all that back into focus, and really, like, the first 10 minutes at Casey Becker's death really previews, you know, just how insane the movie will get. And then it lulls you into, oh no, this is just a silly slasher, you know. And then I feel like something in the direction switches in that third act. And that's why I asked you specifically about what you thought about those first two acts, because you get a hint of it with that first 10 minutes. And then it's just, you know, standard direction. It's nothing boring, but it's just, you know, it's just good enough to get you that next scene. You know, not in a bad way, but in
Yeah.
a very discreet way. And then when that third act hits, that's where I feel like you get all those camera angles, those inventive edits, the sound design, the movement composition. You know, it really goes into overdrive. And that lasts, like, what is it, 30 minutes? It's just nonstop, going from, you know, scene to scene, moment to moment. That house is a fucking maze.
It really is.
Yeah. So, you know, getting in the third act, you get that big reveal. Not only is it actually Billy, but it's also Stu.
But you don't get that till the very last part of Act 3.
Yeah, the last part of Act 3.
I
But,
mean, up
you know,
until then, you're still
thinking, who is it going to be?
following this one killer. I thought the sequence in the garage was great.
Ooh.
Oh,
Just
Yeah, that was gruesome.
yeah, that was gruesome and it was really scary.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
honestly,
Yeah.
I was scared for sure. That was really well done.
Are you afraid to go in your garage now?
I am.
I think he did a really good job at having you connect to Tatum and then just killing her in the most gruesome way.
yeah.
Because I feel like out of all of the character deaths, this one hit me the most.
Uh-huh.
Because all she was like a really good friend.
Yeah, she was just being a good friend. She was just
Yeah.
having a good time. And you know what? She gave you hints of being a good final girl in that moment. She was capable.
Right.
She just made a fatal cat door mistake. You know what makes me sad about that is that, well, for one, Rose McGowan is great, but, like, there's something about Tatum and Dewey's, you know, relationship
Yeah.
as brother and sister that
Yeah.
isn't really super touched upon, but you kind of like they're those typical siblings that
Right, it's
don't get along, but you really feel like
They do get along.
they
Yeah.
do love each other. So
It's like
Yeah.
siblings.
yeah, so it like that death specifically is very it's kind of sad because it's like she's Sydney's friend, she's supportive, she's capable, she's smart, spunky, and right before she dies she calls out for her mom.
Did she?
Yes, she does. Yeah. And
Really?
it's if you rewatch the movie you can kind of hear her. Yeah, it's really that's the thing about a lot of these deaths is that they hit you because you care about the characters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They do a good job at that.
And I don't always think about it when I watch it, but every time I see a death in this movie, especially Tatum and Casey's, I'm like, even the principal, like the principal's
Yeah.
just being a good
It's
guy.
Winkler.
It's
Yeah.
the Fonz, man.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
gonna get the
Yeah.
mask where he goes to. But he has like the mask up because he takes it from the students.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which, by the way, his death was a reshoot. It wasn't originally in the script, but they had gone so long without a death that they were like, "Hey, let's kill somebody." Sure.
Oh, so
that
it's like
guy.
a random throw-in?
Yeah.
And they even made it more graphic too. How they were like, oh, he dies, and they're like, oh, they hung him up at like the goalie, not the end zone. What's it called at the football
the
stadium?
goalpost?
The goalpost. Thank you, Frank.
And then, well, that's interesting too.
goalpost.
Dan was so surprised
Yeah,
that you knew
I
that term.
don't watch
I'm very
football.
surprised that you-
I don't watch football, but
I know things,
And even
Dan.
then, the reshoot scene
Very well.
was and I don't know if it's getting mad enough. Like even like Dan, because what did it take you out of the movie and Henry Winkler's death where he says Freddy and it cuts to the janitor wearing the sweater?
Wes Craven and
Yeah, it was Wes Craven
Oh, I
wearing the
didn't
Freddy
realize that was.
Krueger.
Yeah, I didn't realize
Yeah.
that. I just didn't know why they killed Henry Winkler. I mean, they needed another death. I didn't see
Yeah.
a motivated reason why he had to go down.
Because he was just the
Based
principal.
on what the story I was watching,
Yeah.
I didn't see he's got to go.
I
but
think
it does work to get the most of the other psychotic teenagers out of the house at that third act party.
convenience.
Like, goddamn,
That's
those
true.
kids are fucking insane. Hey, our principal's strung up
That's
at the
what I'm
goalpost. Let's go see that.
That's what I'm saying. It's so
That
dark.
was crazy. Anyway, I also want to mention that this is. I mean, we talk about favorite deaths or kills. The TV set death, right?
Oh,
yeah, where it falls on Stu.
That was great.
Yeah.
Huh? What?
Yeah, when the TV falls on Stu, like where she knocks the TV on him and it falls on his head
Oh.
and starts shocking him. Yeah, as a kid, I think that's the only one that kind of disturbed me a little bit.
I thought that was the best kill.
Real? Okay. Yeah. I
Only because I wasn't
you weren't expecting it?
right. It just kind of happened. I went, whoa, that's really cool.
I gotta say, for me, it was definitely Tatum's.
Same. I
Are
think
you
for
talking
both,
about the garage door?
yeah, I
Yeah.
feel like for you and me both, it's the same reason.
Yeah.
Because it just hits you the hardest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that, I mean, I would never disagree with you. I think the TV set just kind of made me go, wow, that's cool. The Tatum one made me go, oh, man.
That's true.
It's just
Yeah.
Like,
That TV set death is pretty cool. Like, you know, you don't get a lot of those in horror movies. You get it in Nightmare on Elm Street. One of those.
Part 3.
Yeah.
It's
there we
part
go.
3.
But
Always wanted to be a TV star.
I gotta say, in terms of that third act, the Billy and Stu stabbing each other is really like. It's funny because I think about Scary Movies version.
Whoa. Wait.
But also, like, when you dial it back and think about the movie in front of you, it's like, oh, they're fucking crazy.
Yeah.
I'm feeling kind of woozy here, man.
it was an odd mixture of campy, like really dark humor, and just disgusting.
Yeah.
But it all blended together in a way
Really
that,
well.
right, in a way where I didn't know how I felt, but I was like, it was like
You're uncomfortable.
uncomfortable, but couldn't take my eyes off it. It was just. There's an old line like it's like watching a snake eat a pig. It's disgusting, but you can't take your eyes
Yeah.
off of it because it's like, what am I watching? And you're watching these two guys stab each other.
Well, and then
wow.
And then I think right after that too, it does the whole thing where Sydney, she's like, "Oh, I called the police or whatever,"
Yeah.
and then Stu does the, "Did you really call them?" And then she's like, "My parents are gonna be so mad at me."
Oh,
Right.
Stu.
I always laugh at that part.
Simple Stu. Did you
Yeah.
know that the moment where he gets hit in the back of the head with the phone when Billy hits it, that's all improvised?
Yeah.
Oh no, I didn't know that.
Yeah. He, Skeet like just through the you know you're acting in the moment. You do stuff. So he threw it, and then Matthew Lillard just responded with a "Ow! You hit me with a phone, dick."
Yeah.
Such a good moment.
Yeah, speaking of good moments too, and I didn't see it. I didn't ever see it. My first viewings was even too, like we just said, like noticing new stuff is even like when you look on the fridge, Matthew Lillard's fridge, you see it's like a note from his parents, like, "Oh, we're gonna be gone."
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of get the sense like his parents are gone, that his parents were like never there for him,
Yeah.
like ever.
Yeah.
So it's kind of just interesting for his parents, and it kind of goes back to the whole at the end was like, "Oh, my parents are gonna be so mad at me," because you're just kind of like wanting their approval the whole time. Then it kind of goes with the motivation with the peer pressure and.
Yeah. What do you
Yeah.
feel about the motive? How do we feel about the motive? I think it's on one end it's kind of silly, but it's also disturbingly realistic.
Of why he killed.
Yeah,
Or they killed.
of why both of them killed. Yeah.
I thought it was kind of silly, but I think more than that, I say that, but I wasn't. It didn't take me out of the story.
Yeah.
And I think part of the reason why is because of what we just discussed. Because of the way it unfolded while they're stabbing each other, they're also telling us this whole background of what they were doing and why. So you're so taken in by the action
Right.
that what's actually being said, you just have to accept because you're still watching this insanity
up.
go on.
Just
Yeah.
remember, it just
But I
makes them more
also thought
creative.
These guys were so, like, just sort of fit in. Now, yeah, you can go back and say, okay, maybe they were a little different, but they were whack-o. Like,
Oh, yeah.
off their hinges, nuts. So, I don't know how you really can be that crazy and still somehow function in high school and not. Like,
Yeah.
you're killing people right and left, but somehow just showing up to class every day and acting like you're like one of the gang. I mean, that's something you could argue and complain about a lot
I
of
feel like
stories, but
they've had a long con at this point where it was just kind of like it made sense.
Yeah.
Because
to be
that crazy,
that
but also
far
be
off
able
at
to
the edge
function.
at the
Yeah.
end. No, but I'm just talking about the end.
Yeah.
I just felt like they had just gone off the
Yeah.
cliff
they
at the
They
end.
lost it. Yeah.
In retrospect, I mean, you really start to see the seams unravel.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It was so
Like,
chaotic.
yeah, but in the moment you're like, this is a red herring, this is a red herring. But I mean, how many times have we heard about people that, have actually committed crimes in real life? And, in retrospect, 2020 vision, people are like, oh, I should have seen this coming.
Yeah.
You know?
What I will
That's
say
true.
for me, I agree with Dan with the motive being silly. Before Billy told what happened, he said this line that having no motive is just as crazy. And hearing that, I was like, oh crap, if that's true, they're plain psychotic, and I'm actually truly terrified. But then he went on and was like, oh, just kidding, I do have a motive. And I think that motive was kind of silly. But I feel like if they kept with the no motive, we're just scary, I would have liked that a little bit more.
Yeah.
Because it would make sense as to why.
That was a really scary line.
Yeah,
I agree with you.
It would make sense why they were going around killing people.
Some people just want to watch the world burn.
There you go. There you go.
Oh yeah, we'll get into some of that with the strangers, but I agree. I think having no motive is just as scary. I think in terms of the story, it makes more sense to have a motive, just because it leads to all this development.
Right.
But I agree. I think it's silly, but I think that silliness works towards the satire aspect of the movies. That whole meta take on the horror movie. Which I think the movie really lands well. It establishes those tropes even better than something like The Rise of Leslie Vernon.
Yeah.
And it really pays homage to them while not disrespecting them and improving on them.
I also feel like, given the structure of the story, having that sort of murder mystery angle to it, in that classic sense of storytelling, you always have to have either the bad guy is going to explain it all or the cop is going to explain it all, but it has to all be explained. It can't be unexplained, why you did it and all that. And so, and typically you have that. Well, I'm going to tell you everything I need to tell you now, which is okay with me, because that's a classic, murder mystery aspect, which I felt like this movie was as much that as it was a slasher film.
It was the villain monologue at the end.
Exactly. It's the James Bond. Okay, Mr. Bond, I'll tell you exactly how I'm going to take over the world, and here's how all the buttons work, and this is where the code is, and oh wow, I gave you too much information.
Yeah. So speaking of that, Dan, final thoughts. Yeah, final thoughts.
Let me go last on final thoughts. I really want to hear you guys.
So, we've grown up with this movie. Some of us longer than others, but this really is a classic of the genre. It's a staple. It has all of the hallmarks of a good slasher. But as we all know, there's gonna be more to come. So what are our final thoughts on this first in a series?
I'll go.
Sam?
Yes. I really enjoyed it. And I kind of beat myself up for taking so long to watch it. I think you were like, Travis, you were the one who was like, you have to watch it, and you made me watch it.
And then you saw it in theaters for the first time, 25th anniversary.
Yeah, and like I said, I kind of beat myself up for not watching, because I feel like it was like the foundation of a lot of horror movies to come, like we've been talking about, and it had all the classic horror tropes, but it worked well in their favor. Nothing was stale, and it made the movie a lot better. Especially with the twist at the end. And I think Craven was one of the only ones that can reference a whole lot of movies, including his own, and it wasn't silly. But I will have to say, after the third watch, I'm okay. I don't think I'll rewatch it for a while, because it was very formulaic at this point, so I just kind of predictable. But the first watch, I really did enjoy it, so I will give it 4 camcorders out of 5.
Nice.
Well, Sam, going with 3 times.
I know.
There was probably a point in time when I probably at least watched this 3 times a year. I cannot stress enough that, to me, I know everyone kind of has their series that they attach themselves to, the horror series. This was definitely one of mine. I grew up watching all the Scream films, and it's good. I grew up, I really like them. I think it's very important film in the horror genre. I think it kind of came out at the perfect time, and I agree. I think Wes Craven was one of probably the best filmmakers to do it. I feel like anyone needs to see it. If you're even remotely interested in horror films, go ahead, make it your first horror film. I really enjoyed it. I think that this film definitely set the trend for 90s horror. and what came after, having these Wes Craven and Kevin Williamson, where you have horror slashers in high school and with teenagers. They definitely invented it with this one. I think everyone should watch it. I'm going to give it, I've explained enough. I'm going to give it 5 PG-13s.
Wow,
That's
so
a good one.
5 out of 5. You're
5
making
out of 5 PG-13s.
That's your first
You're
perfect
making
score.
you're making it a perfect movie then.
Yeah, you don't gotta judge me here.
No, we're just saying that's your first. Your first
I
5
think
out of
it
5.
is. Yeah, it's my first.
Only God
Travis
can
is
judge.
first.
And I kept it PG-13.
Because you've used the word great with movies you gave like a 2.5 stars
Whoa,
to. So I'm dying to know what this movie is. If those were great, what is
I have
this?
previously teased that I was going to explain that I figured it all out, what I meant, but we're running kind of long here, so people will just keep having to wait to hear.
I'm going to go next. I'll let Frank do the wrap up on this. I'm glad I saw it. Again, I thought the beginning. I'm wrestling, and as we go further into the Scream movies, I'm sure I'll get. Well, we'll see what I have to say about it. Again, I thought the first 10 minutes was really scary. I agree with you, Frank. I think that we go back to that in the third act, or at least up to the point where our bad guys start their crazy ass confession, and I think it's at its best. I think it actually is scary. I think it gets a little. I wasn't ready for the silly part. I wasn't ready for it to become silly and campy. So I would say I would never watch this movie again, but I probably will watch it again because I'd like to watch it now that I know how it goes and just see if I look at it differently and kind of see how it unfolds differently, kind of knowing now what what it is I watch. So anyway, I will give it 3.5. I feel like I give everything 3.5. I'll give it 3.5 beer bottles. Since that was sort of the Act 3 thing.
In the garage.
3.5 garage door openers.
No.
Anyway, that's mine. Out of 5.
Interesting.
Great
Okay.
Horsepower.
All right. Well, Scream for me is an absolute classic. I think it's a perfect example of how much fun you can have with the genre. It's well acted, it's brilliantly directed, and I personally think it's infinitely rewatchable. I watch it. I find myself watching it every couple months, just randomly. Even if I just want to put something on, I'll put it on. I can go in and out and know exactly where I'm at, and not lose track of any of the plot points, any of the things that have happened. But I think it's damn near perfect. I think it's surprisingly brutal for being such a simple premise, and the costume being such a generic Halloween costume. I think it hides a lot of its special attributes in the body of the film itself. It doesn't really give you too much just based off of the name or the description. But yeah, I think it's perfect, and I'm gonna have to side with Travis here. I'm gonna give it 5 Casey Becker wigs out of 5.
Oh,
You went with the wigs.
Yeah.
No.
It
That was a
snatched
wig?
my Casey Becker
That
wig.
was not her hair?
No.
Oh, I'm so disappointed.
Oh, wow. This is the first for Frank and Travis.
Yeah,
And we kept-
perfect score.
And we get the PG-13. Meh.
no, I was going to say... No, I wasn't going to say that. I was going to say wigs are funny.
All right.
All right, so that wraps up the first episode of our special Scream presentations. Look out for Scream 2 next week. And in the meantime, like, comment, subscribe, review, and look out for a regular episode this coming Thursday. This has been Strangers in the Alps, a slasher podcast. I'm Frank.
I'm Dan.
I'm Travis.
Sam.
And we're out. Okay, so here's the logline of the film. A year after the murder of her mother, a A year
Let's
after
start again. What
I hit
happened?
the mic.
A year what?
In 1996, the year of our Lord,